what I would say creativity is that light up person who has the ability to use their imagination to solve problems. It's essential, really, isn't it? Teaching isn't a script. It's a fabulous moment that you build with a child and children where you find ways to unlock their potential. I always say to people, what's the research behind this? You know, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to follow a script? What you're telling me that script's better than me? No way.
Hi, welcome to Creative Minds Shaping the Future. I'm your host, Emma Palastanga. I'm an educator, author, and now podcast producer, curious to discuss a range of views on creativity and curriculum. Shonette Bason is a primary school teacher and early years specialist with over 30 years of classroom experience. She's also an author and motivational speaker, passionate about exciting children's and practitioners' learning. Her boundless energy, happiness, and love for play are just some of the reasons she is a sought-after speaker. You may be familiar with her innovative approaches to early writing, such as Do Disco, now delivered in over 50 countries worldwide, or Squiggle Whilst You Wiggle, or Squiggle Me Into a Writer. Maybe you are holding a copy of the Spread the Happiness approach. Let's spread some happiness today via this episode of Creative Minds Shaping the Future. So Shonette, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. We're going to dive straight in with, how do you define creativity?
Well, I thought about this question, and I think creativity to me is the ability to think beyond the reality of where you are. I think it's the ability to look at life and see a different perspective almost, and to solve problems quite quickly in your environment, whatever that may be. To be able to lift yourself out of what is and be able to look at it in a different way, I think that's what creativity is. And I think that to be able to have that as a human means that you have a better life almost. As quote by will.i.am. I always remember when I was writing a book, somebody said to me, you can't quote famous people. Like, really? Why can't you quote will.i.am? And he said, be the light in the room, be the person who's the light in the room. And he said that those people are the people who create the solutions, create the joy, and that's what I would say creativity is that light up person who has the ability to use their imagination to solve problems. It's essential, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think you do that in your day-to-day work, don't you? You certainly,
definitely
light up a room, Shonette.
Thank you. I do consciously think about that because education has so many problems. I was just looking at somebody on Instagram there, like we've got this thing like, this is wrong in education, this is wrong in education, this is wrong in, and I think, all right, we know that, but then, so if we know that, let's create something better. That I say this on my trainings at the moment, it's not to shame people, creativity, is it? But it's, if we know better, do better. That's it, right? Because, I'm from 1972 when people felt your bum, you know what I mean? And that was all right then, and it's not all right now. So then if you know better, do better. It wasn't all right then, but people had that thinking. And it's the same education, but we're very, very, very slow, aren't we, in education to allow creativity in. And one of the things that I see at the moment in the workforce of teaching is the lack of creativity or the autonomy to be creative. And I feel sad. I feel sad for children because, if that had been me back when I invented door disco. Door disco wouldn't be around. Lots of things wouldn't be around, would they, if that was the case?
I think, yeah, dough disco was something I discovered before I saw you actually at a conference. And I loved it. Your energy, your infectious energy. The kids loved it. I mean, there was dough everywhere, Shonette, to be fair. But it was wonderful. They loved it. And I've used it one-on-one again with a little boy that I tutor, and he loved it. It's such a
Yeah.
fun way to develop those fine motor skills.
Yeah. And as well, the thing about door disco was 21 years ago, we didn't have all this buzziness of, self-regulation and neurodiversity. We didn't have all that. But we also didn't have the children that we have in our classroom today. So when I created it, it was because the government expected children to start writing at 3 and 4 without knowing what was actually in our classrooms at 3 and 4. And all of the problems that we see now were there 21 years ago. They've just accelerated to now, I think, without being dramatic, it's a crisis. We talk about it all the time. But in the classroom, it's a crisis. It's a crisis because what I say to early years teachers is you're the first generation to teach digital childhood. You should actually take that on board and be proud of yourself because you're the first people to do it. And people won't understand it until it starts to filter through. And by that, I mean, like, by the time they're in year 5, people go, oh, no, we're at crisis, right? And all the early years teachers will be like, they're smoking a bit. Like, we've been telling you for years, right? But I think if we know we're at a crisis, why don't we embrace that? Because that's what I did all those years ago. You want them to write, and I had a really difficult class. I had like really challenging class. They were actually the 2000 babies, the millennium babies. And I think, and one of them was my own child. I think that on New Year's Eve, they maybe got jigged about in the womb. So they were all a little bit, whoop! And I had 26 boys and 4 girls.
Wow.
And it was just another level. So I started taking them outside because that's what I had 4 children myself. Well, I still do, but they're all adults. And I knew that by walking my children, it calmed them down, So I started doing that with my class, and I saw an article in The Guardian about Welsh outdoor curriculum, because the Welsh are quite forward thinking in their curriculum, quite creative. When we talk about creativity, their foundation phase is really creative. And I love to see that. But then that's where I started to learn the neuroscience behind outdoors and about how outdoors and movement and brain science and all of those things. And now they're very much talked about words, but I still wonder if people really know the potential of early years. A really famous teacher that you might interview on here called Do Disco the other day green screen and razzmatazz. I was like, wow, that's the way we are in education. We look at early years like babysitters and what they're doing. Is it actually learning? Actually, it's super skilled to be able to manage behavior, the developmental challenges, to be able to get a child to, for me, in reception, the total focus of a reception class should be to foster the love of learning. It's your first time at school. If you don't love school at 4 and 5, and the education secretary just said the lowest attendance is in reception, and I do think that's down to what we're delivering in reception, because I and all the teachers out there who are creative, excited, loving teaching, I can't wait to get in and, create. If a child's going in and it's just dry and dull, of course they're not going to want to come to school.
I think you've hit one of my passions on the head, if you like, about attendance and about making that. I think of it as a menu, making that menu of opportunities sort of really desirable. I've got to get to school because I just have to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And Tina and Claire in episode 1 actually talk about that their children are part of this learning community. For me, I think there is so much that can be learnt through early years, actually, that should be taken right the way across the school. One of them being those characteristics of effective learning.
Yeah.
I think we don't understand that enough. I don't profess to be an expert. I have dipped my toes into early years. There is so much rich opportunity that should be taken right through the school.
Yeah, and I think, the fear is this learning? Is this learning? That's the fear. And that's what I call people who are lemon suckers, people who've got in their mouths. And I just did a post on Instagram just before, and I said, transition should be a bridge, because, and I love that. I don't know where I saw that. It wasn't my concept. When I read it, I thought, oh, how beautiful. Yeah. Like two totally different ages and stages right through, coming together in the summer term and saying, let's build a bridge together. What does this cohort need that I'll come across to the middle of the bridge, and you come across and tell me, what do we need to do to get them to here? Wouldn't that be a beautiful creative moment together?
Absolutely.
Fortunately, in our education system, everybody seems to want to whip the person behind them, right? Like, you didn't do this and now they can't do that. But we're missing the point. We're actually missing the point, because right now, something that perhaps primary teachers don't see. I would like to say I never thought about this until yesterday, right? Now I'm 53 on Monday. So I didn't really think about the future workforce. And I've started working within corporate businesses, a really big company called Oracle. And they'd speak in corporate language, which me as a teacher, I'm like, ooh. And so I've had to kind of learn how to speak their language. And we're even being coached by a 25-year-old. That's like what we're doing. And when they talk about the skills gap in the workforce currently, there's 6 things in this skills gap. And they are not university taught. They are actually early years skills. And I think that we as an education system have a journey to go on massively, right? But we need to start to look at the beginning of the journey rather than the end.
Yes.
We need to start saying, this is missing. I mean, yesterday I had a conversation with a university lecturer who's having to create a buddy system with her 18, 19-year-old students, because the attendance of lectures this year was an all-time low, because they have such high anxiety, they're too scared to come to lectures. Do you remember, when you went to lectures? I had a buddy gang, we were there. We especially loved poetry, because I did a BA honours with English literature. And our poetry teacher, oh my goodness, he was the fittest man. He was so gorgeous. We all would be there, lipsticked up in poetry, right? Which you're probably not allowed to say that now, right? But we were. I can't imagine not wanting to go and have that rich experience of the lectures, being together. And that's a skill, isn't it? Communication, friendships, social and emotional. And now we've got this anxious generation that just can't be together. How scary is that? How are we going to procreate people if our teenagers can't be together?
Those 6 skills that you talked about, can you remember what those 6 skills were, or some of them?
They were resilience. Lots of the current workforce aren't resilient, leave very quickly, retention is difficult, social and emotional, communication, can't communicate, anxiety, to super high levels of anxiety, which means they almost can't cope. I'm trying to think what the other ones are. I can send you them after, but yeah. And I feel like we've got a part to play in this, because, education isn't perfect. But I think from a creativity perspective, we're not allowing children the autonomy to be a child. I put in my Instagram story, when was the last time you let a child be a child? We're too busy trying to, I don't know what we're trying to do, almost put them through a mangle of learning.
The reason behind this podcast really was because I'd felt from little bits that I'd seen, little threads that I'd followed on social media, that there is a massive focus on pouring that knowledge in to children's heads. Like, let's flip their heads open, pour the knowledge in. And I feel that we've lost our way a bit with creativity.
I think that's an understatement. The Great Fire of London in year 1 in Newcastle upon Tyne, when the children don't even know where Newcastle upon Tyne is. Like, and the Great Fire of London, really? Okay, like, hate on me, people listening, but like, really? Could we teach 5-year-olds? This week, I don't know if you saw it, my beautician told me a horrendous story about her 5-year-old is doing, not a church school, doing Judaism, right? Fabulous. Learning about other cultures, great. She had to, for homework, a 5-year-old for homework, rewrite the Jewish 10 Commandments as her own. Now, then she was being taught the Jewish 10 Commandments. And I was like, what? She was, you shalt not murder, covet the other person's wife. What? And then I put it out on Instagram, and somebody actually said, in our scheme, week 1, not a church school again, week 1, it's draw a picture of Jesus walking on water in reception. What? Like, not tell the story of why he walked on water, blah, 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 blah. But there's so many other stories that could be told for religion, right?
Yeah, and it's those gaps in understanding. When I spoke to, I think it was Dr. Mark Williams, we talked about the Lego blocks of knowledge underpinning then that creativity. And I would say it's about, making sure they've got the foundations before you move on. And that's what we used to call early years, didn't we? Foundation stage.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But also now, we've got digital childhood, which crosses socioeconomics. Before we had deprived children, affluent children, and maybe a little bit of in between, right? Mm-hmm. Now we've got a problem because we've got digital childhood. We've got children addicted to technology. 49% of 2-year-olds in the UK have a device, okay? 91% of 11-year-olds in the UK have a smartphone, but they never had a smartphone till probably about 5 years ago. So what's this next generation going to be like? I'm scared. I won't lie to you. I think it's scary what's in our early years. And then I get messages from teachers like, I had one last night, I'm being made to teach a computer, even the word computer is ancient, computer curriculum to reception next year. What? Why? Okay, these are children who can hack NASA. Why are you showing them a mouse? Here's a mouse. Here's a keyboard. Right. We're not back in the day here. I went to a school the other week. I was watching this beautiful teacher, affluent area, beautiful teacher in reception on the floor. She was doing bebops. The children were sat looking at her, and you could almost read the speech bubbles above their heads. Does she think that's it? Like, it goes left and right and forwards and back, right? I was on hacking Marks and Spencer's last night and asking £1,000,000, right? This is what our child. We don't need technology in early years. I would even go to say Key Stage 1. I think we wait to use technology till Key Stage 2. Let's get the basic skills in. Schools now are doing iPads from year 1, right? Yeah. Thank goodness I haven't heard of it being in reception yet, but it probably will be. But there, you on a device, the Ofcom research is 6 to 7 hours a day. So they're home 6 to 7 hours a day, and then their school days like that. They're missing skills that they can't bring to the workforce. Let's get back into the basics. Let's get creative again.
Yes, Shonette.
Because creativity is the joy. It's the joy, isn't it? One of the things I absolutely love is planning the actual joy I'm going to bring, right? And so I always take a book of the week, because that's how I was taught to do it years ago. And it doesn't matter whether that's 2-year-old provision, nursery, because we have 2s in schools now. And, I'm bringing that joy of that story to life. And isn't that why we teach? That's why I teach, because why I still teach is because when I'm in the classroom and I'm being the dragon or the witch or the what big bad wolf, and it's that joy that I see in their eyes, like, they know that you're not the big bad wolf, but they don't care, because they're like, do it again, say it again, sing it again. In that is the learning. In that is, the data. We talk about data. You can make data up. We all have been in situations in our careers where somebody's asked us to change the data, right? I remember a very famous situation with me where a woman from the council was telling me to change my data, actually up my data, right? And I said to her, I'm not going to do that. And she was like, but you're going to get us in trouble. I was like, but you don't understand that that's real data. Children in here. And that school reminded me, actually, I refused to do it. I did get in a lot of trouble, but I refused to do it because why am I doing that? Why are you asking me to make it up? Because why are you asking me to do it in the first place if you're going to make it up? Right?
Yeah, do it yourself.
But this is the other side to creativity, isn't it? Is when you are creative and when you are strong in your opinion. And well, mine's not an opinion anymore. It's actual research science-based, the razzmatazz and green screen. It is actually smoke and mirrors, because like you say, children love door disco, but it's actually getting their fine motor skills. It's strengthening those hands for writing. But that's quite clever, actually, when you think about it. And people are like, what, you dance your fingers in Play-Doh? And I'm like, But then the writing improves.
Yeah.
And that's when I had all those ideas that it's also joy. It's also joy. Which for me feels like we're not even allowed joy. You can have joy in nursery, but when you get to reception, there's no joy, right? And the rest of the school, goodness me, watch out, right?
And I think that's what you, myself, and so many of my other guests are really sort of fighting against and saying, no, let's bring back joy, let's have fun and play. I know that's a massive passion of yours as well. Play and creativity, I think, go hand in hand with each other.
See, the thing is about play is when Ofsted wrote Strong Foundations, lots of people said they don't want play. And it's actually not true if you read the document properly. They want to see purposeful play. And the problem is, and people hate me for saying this out loud, but it's the truth. Our current children and incoming children can't play. They can't play anymore. Because if you look and I show a screen slide of a McDonald's play area before COVID was all tubes, remember, and slides and all that kind of stuff, like a soft play. And now it's 2 iPads with a chair.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of what we're doing. We're just sterilizing childhood, making it as still as possible. I call it Victorian childhood in 2025. Children are seen but not heard. And that is exactly what is happening. And that when we talk about attendance, I just want to tell you this story because in that school, it was in Sunderland, in the northeast, and it was the most deprived area I've ever worked at. When I went in home visits, I was actually, it's choking me up still to think about it. The deprivation was just unbelievable. And one of the little girls in my class, she was in nursery. We had nursery and reception all in together. And she one day was so excited to come to school. I can't even remember what we were doing. She ran to school, but she didn't even have shoes on. Now, this is only in the past 10 years, right? Yeah. So to think that, you think, really? Because she didn't have shoes to wear. But she ran to school barefoot it was deep winter in the northeast, in a little summer dress. And she ran in and she knocked on the door. It wasn't even time to come. So she'd come on her own at 3. She knocked on the door and she just ran into my arms and she was like, I just want to meet you. Yeah. And she was just like,
Oh.
and I bought her a pair of shoes because I can't bear things like that. And we put jumpers on her and leggings and everything. But every day, the joy to see that little girl running in the gate. I didn't care that it wasn't my hours or anything like that, because she just wanted to come to school because school was safe, school was warm, she was going to get fed, she was going to have a great day with other people. And that's what we need to focus on, creating that love of learning. I just think that should be our priority.
Completely agree with you there, Shonette. Do you have a really memorable moment in terms of creativity, either from something you've delivered or from your own childhood, something that really sticks in your mind?
When I was younger, I lived in a seaside town, and my mum, who is very famous in Spread the Happiness because she's Shonette's mum, even though she has two other children, she worked in a post office, and my dad was a fisherman, and we lived right by the sea. And it was like a street. It's a very bougie town now, but it wasn't in the 70s. And we had like a garden that was like the street was literally there, but we had a little bit of a garden. We were like a posher house in the street, maybe. And in my house, it was an old Victorian house. It had a wooden door to the cellar down some steps, and it had like a freesia bush, with the red flower bells on.
Yes. Yeah.
And I used to collect all of the children in the street regularly up and sit them on my wall of my house and regale stories to them of the boggart that lived in the cellar. Wow. And I always remember doing that. And we would make like pies for the boggart, and we would leave the boggart presents and make perfume and things like that. And do you know what? I think that's where I was destined to become a teacher, because I had to gather everyone up and do that. And in those days we called girls like that bossy, right? But I was bossy. I still am bossy. My mom even says to me now, "You're so bossy," and I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not bad, because I actually need to be bossy to help people in life." And she's like, "Yeah, I suppose so." But yeah, I would say that always sticks in my mind. And I've met people who lived in my street who were like the same age as me, right? Remember them stories you used to tell us about this boggart? And one guy, he said to me, he's actually a lawyer now, and he was like, "I think about them stories, because we really believed that a boggart lived in your cellar." That's like, and I think, isn't that life story? Yeah. and that connection? And maybe that's something to think about in our children, to create a better future work for is let's give them things that they have a story to tell. What are you going to tell? I watch TikTok 6-7 hours a day. Do you remember that on TikTok? It's not a story, is it?
No.
It's not a story to tell.
I think we need to provide those experiences for children, don't we? Those real life, get your hands dirty, dig in the mud. Let's get out there and do stuff and experience it for ourselves. Not sit in front of a slide, here's some information, bit more information, like go and do a worksheet, off you go.
My daughter is a teacher. She's 28. She's a teacher in a year 2 class this year. She's early years, but the head wanted her in this year 2 class. She absolutely hates it. She has even applied for jobs in the tax office, right? Because all she has tried for 2 terms to introduce door disco. These children are quite low level. She's tried, and behavioral. She's introduced the parachute. We do like this magic 3 thing, the running, the bubbles and the parachute. She's tried to introduce all that. At every turn, she's been met with, "This isn't year 2. This isn't year 2. This isn't year 2. To the point where she actually she had to apply for her own job, and she said, "I'm not going to do it. I don't want it. I don't want that job anymore." Mm-hmm. Like, it's really drained her. And she's a really creative person as well. Absolute. I've taught with her for 2 years. She's an absolute amazing teacher.
Why have we got a recruitment crisis, Shonette? Let's ask that question, shall we? If we're not allowing the teachers, and that's in my book, A Creative Primary Curriculum for All, I push the fact that it's not just for the children, it's for the adults as well. We need that freedom. We need that autonomy.
We totally do.
We've gone into teaching not to be deliverers of the curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the danger, I think. And I think
I don't even think it's the curriculum, because if you look at the statutory curriculum, that could be creative, right?
Oh, 100%.
100%. It's the schemes of work. It's this, can I just say the word stupid, fidelity to the script. Like, I am currently not teaching because I am seen as a disruptor when I teach, because I refuse to teach to a script. I have never taught to a script. I don't follow a script. Even when I speak for a living, I don't have a script, right? Because teaching isn't a script. It's a fabulous moment that you build with a child and children, where you find ways to unlock their potential. How does a script do that?
Whose idea was the script? Why should we have to follow a script? And the bit that got me, and I don't know if you've seen the same, again on social media, in large schools, I expect to come into your classroom, Shonette, and then go into Emma's classroom, and you should be at the same page at the same time. I couldn't believe that. Is that real?
Yes, that is real. There is an actual scheme out there that has a script. It even has a script for deviation of the script. And when the people come in your classroom to observe you, they click something, I don't know what it is, and the script comes up, that where you should be comes up on your board. And if you're not saying those words, oh, you're in trouble. Like, really? Shut up. Like,
my jaw has dropped. I cannot believe that. That's awful.
Why don't we just get ChatGPT then in?
Yeah.
Right? Why don't we just say, Alexa, read this? Because what is that? What?
She might have more luck keeping in time than people like you and me who get a bit overexcited, perhaps, Shonette, with learning. And
I definitely, but I would not be following a script. You ask me to sit a frog on my shoulder, I'm going to do something creative about that, because that's who I am, right? So I used to have the frog on my shoulder, and then I would start the lesson by throwing the frog, and it would land on the projector, and I'd say, I don't want to talk to a frog, I want to talk to these children, right? Frogs can't talk. So when I was being observed by the consultant, the children were going, throw the frog, Shonette, throw the frog. And I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, but obviously it wasn't fidelity to the script. Then a bit further on, I did something wrong anyway. And in front of the children, she said to me, you can't do that. Da-da-da-da-da. And I did that face that you've just done, right? That, how rude is that? Almost like, really? And I just I was looking at her, and one of my little girls went, don't be rude to Shonette. I was like, out of the mouths of children, okay? Like, if you're trust, where's the trust? Yes. That's what I would say, right? So at the moment, I'm trying to create my own nursery. And I'm involved in the government expansion scheme, and currently building 2 nurseries to the spec, which I'm so excited for. Brilliant. And, the thing is, until something changes, teachers like me will not go in the classroom. Somebody else, a girl who's worked with me for like 16 years, she also came out the classroom at Easter. And she struggles to even consider going to supply because of what happened to her in the classroom, because we're just being crushed into, do it like this. Even it's not working. We don't care. Just do it like that.
I think there needs to be more of us. And this podcast, I feel, is really just a beginning of people fighting back and saying, no, this isn't right. And we know because of this, this and this. Every guest I've had on so far, and I have many more to come, they're all really passionate about creativity, why there are the benefits, and the connections that we get between the adults and the children, between the children themselves. And isn't connection really everything?
What did we learn in COVID if we didn't learn that human connection was everything? I was so lucky because I worked all the way through COVID. I went in an Amazon factory, and then as soon as COVID was over, I went over to Dubai and taught nursery. And then I came back and was in a school again, working. And all of that time, I never lost human connection, even in the factory, It was horrendous in the factory, but I was with other people. I was with totally different people, and I learned so many things, maybe things that I don't need to ever know. But I had that experience of being together. I think that what we do as well is that we don't accept as a society that we've been through a trauma and our children have been through a trauma. My mum said to me a couple of months ago, stop talking about COVID all the time as a trauma. And I said, no, because if you've had a trauma in your childhood, which everybody has in some level of trauma, we all know that becomes a residue within adulthood. So all of these children have been through a trauma. The children that are currently in our early years were in the womb during COVID. Their parent was in a high state of alert, anxiety through the roof. And we know, we've got science that says this affects the unborn child, the mother being in that state of high stress. We all face death. That's the actual truth. We all look death in the eye, right? And we didn't know how it was going to be. Me, being a totally optimistic person, was like, oh, it'll only be 2 weeks. I waved off my nursery class, like, don't worry, parents, I'll see you in 2 weeks. I never saw them again because I changed schools.
Yeah.
And we've kind of forgotten that we need that creativity as well, I think, don't you?
I think that's exactly it. We've forgotten, and we've gone back to, well, if we need to go online again and teach children from home, let's make sure we've got resources we can use in school and at home.
Yeah.
I think that's perhaps a safety net that's created some of it.
Yeah.
But equally, let's give those children rich opportunities when we're face to face, so that if we do ever have to teach from home again, then we know that we've put in all the groundwork in school while we're together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you talked a bit about your nursery. What's next for Shonette?
For me, I have created something just this past week called Champions of Childhood. And it's a solution to the problem of digital childhood. Basically, I think all of us know there's a problem, and yet we want to sort it out. Well, I do. I've been thinking about it for a while, because I think everybody's like, oh, remember when children didn't have devices? Remember when? And people, Jonathan Haidt brought out his book Anxious Generation last year, which proved that digital childhood is toxic. And the research is there now for that. But my concern is that kind of thinking is about stop smartphones in secondary school, right? And tell parents to stop giving them devices. But actually, we've got a bigger problem than that, because parents are addicted to the devices. So when you're asking a parent to put down the child's device, what has the parent got in their hand? And that connection that we were just talking about is totally missing. But also, we've got an even bigger problem, because like I said before, we've got 2-year-olds with devices. What are they going to be like when they're 11? That's my fear. I think people power, I've always believed in the power of people. The ripple effect of one human is phenomenal. And in education, we have a bigger ripple effect than anybody, because we're one person in front of 30 people who then have 30 plus people, and so on. So, the ripple of the primary school can be anywhere between 6,000 to 8,000 people. So for me, I've created this declaration that people sign, and they sign it to say, I'm going to be a champion of childhood. I'm going to talk about this more, but I'm not going to talk about it in a way that makes people feel shamed about devices, because devices came. In COVID, I always make a joke about, in COVID, 97% of children had a device. But when COVID came, even the couscous mummies and daddies, reached for a glass of Chardonnay and gave the child a device, because everybody was just out of their minds with what can we do. So now we've got this high percentage, we've got these numbers, we know the facts. So let's do something, because it's actually simple. And like you're saying about creativity, that's my belief is, if we get enough people together in a movement and we get a movement going, I've had 250 people sign in the first week, the solution. Then we join a little Facebook group. The irony is it's online, right? That's sarcasm. But that's where I'm going to, and I've written 50 things to do without a device. So when you go in the group, we've done part 1, we're going to do part 2, we're going to do 50 things to do this summer, and we're going to just keep that going. So that parents can come and go, do you know what? I don't have to give my child a device, because people have forgotten that there once was a time before devices. When I used to take my children to school, no one had a device in the car because we didn't have them. So what did I do? Yes, there was screaming. Yes, there was fights, but I used to play a CD. That's how old it was, right? Now you've got all the songs of the world on your device, right? And I used to put my CD in, and it was Jay Sean. And it wasn't even like nursery rhymes or anything like that. And so I was talking, so what I'm doing with Champions of Childhood is I'm going out to corporate businesses, and I'm talking to them in terms of CSR, which is corporate social responsibility. And companies have a CSR, basically, and they have this corporate social responsibility. Now, what we're talking about is social value, is saying, to a company like Oracle, for example, or Deloitte. These are big tech companies. Why don't you come on board with us? We'll come into your company and we'll do talks to your employees so that they understand digital childhood and the solutions. But then your money that you give us, because we're a charity spreading the happiness, we will take that money and we will produce workshops that we will then go out to schools and say, we've got these free workshops for you, and on behalf of this company. And then we will show parents, and we're going to do it in like early years for reception children in year 1, because that's where parents are still actively involved. And we're going to show them ways that they can put down their device and reconnect with the child. And also in terms of play, everybody plays. All those Tory Twitterers or X's, the education ones, and we're like, oh, it's all about knowledge, right? Play is a fundamental, essential as connection play is. Just as an adult, you do it differently.
Yeah. Well,
most of those adults need alcohol or drugs to do it. Hashtag just saying.
Or cold water dipping.
Yeah. Play doesn't have to be like that for an adult, but we lose that connection with ourselves and our own joy. And I think that's what children do. Where if we give children back childhood, we are going to reconnect ourselves with that. And just to end that little rant, is in Champions of Childhood, we don't bang on about Norway, Sweden, Denmark. Because my mum went to Norway on a cruise and she come back and she was like, in Norway. And I was like, Mum, in Norway, when they found oil, they distributed the wealth amongst everyone in Norway. In the northeast, we have all of the oils and no one gives us a penny, right? So England, UK, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, totally different place. And if we as an education people have to accept that and say, but what can we do here? And what great things can we do? And we're doing great things.
Completely agree with you there. And I think you're right about the culture is different. I remember going on a trip to Finland, an education trip, and it was fascinating and really interesting. But I was perhaps a little disruptor myself when I said, but it works here, but you can't just lift it up and plonk it somewhere else and expect it to work. And that's one of the exciting things about one of my other guests, exploring moving something from the UK to Asia. They're embedding themselves in the culture, exploring the background to see then how they can make their system work within that culture. It's important to them. And I think there it will have much more success than if you just thought, oh, that's a great idea in wherever and plonk it somewhere else. It won't work. And it won't work between schools. You need to look at the children right in front of you.
The famous phrase now is, what do we want our children to learn? What do they want? look at that workforce, that future workforce. I will certainly think differently in my classroom now. The future workforce is in our hands. I've never thought of it like that. I don't know why I've never thought of it like that, but I haven't. The future workforce is in our hands. And actually, what do they need to learn to be able to, because goodness, I want them to thrive when they're sick. I want them to be able to go to a lecture with each other when they're 18. I don't want them to be scared, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing as well is like, don't suppress your creativity, I think, either. That's what I would say, because do disco in reality is green screen and razzmatazz, dancing your fingers in dough, but actually it is done in 52 different countries around the world, you know? And I never, in my Teesside school, when I did it, thought that this will become a worldwide phenomenon. I just wanted to solve the problem in my classroom. Yeah. And then other people saw it, and now it's done. It's a trademark, and and one of the most beautiful videos I received this year was from a teacher who's working in Africa, and these children literally have a mud hut. Mm-hmm. And she makes them dough, she gets them dough. It's obviously not got cream of tartar and all of that in, but she makes them this dough, and they do dough disco every day. And the video, it just makes your heart sing. And if that's what creativity can do, don't stop being creative. Be a positive disruptor. Be the person who says, what about this? Or what's this problem? Or why? I always say to people, what's the research behind this? You know, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to follow a script? What you're telling me that script's better than me? No way. No way on this world.
I'm noticing the time, Shonette, and I'm afraid you need to get to your cold dipping.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, Shonette. Thank you ever so much for your time.
Have a lovely day, and I will get to the waterfall.
Yes, I'm very envious. You enjoy that waterfall.
I will. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you've enjoyed listening to Shonette with her boundless enthusiasm and inspiring ideas. Next month, I speak to Jo Symes, a home educator. Here she is with a few words.
Watching my kids deteriorate significantly, watching their mental health decline was heartbreaking. And it's lit a fire in my belly. I can't let it lie. That's why I set up the Facebook group and the website, and that's why I'm committed to doing this work. I think joyful, playful learning is the way forward. There is some incredible work being done, and we need to champion that and showcase it and inspire others to do the same.
I have some fantastic guests lined up. Some you will know and some you will want to know. I'm really excited to announce I'll be releasing this podcast once a month, and I'll be talking with philosophers, artists, mathematicians, scientists, engineers, innovators, and educators. If this sounds like you, maybe you have a view on creative thinking or creative expression, please get in touch by following me at ACPC4A, the number 4, on X, or Emma Palastanger on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe to this podcast so that you can stay up to date on the release of each episode. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Creative Minds Shaping the Future.